So, you're welcome, everyone. You're welcome. It's always a privilege to have you all again Tuesday, and today we are Thursday evening with our racism conversation. It's always a privilege to have you. Thank you for being so diligent. Thank you for offering us the gift of your time. Thank you very much for being a part of us. Thank you for trusting our work. Thank you for supporting our work. Thank you very much for just being there for us. Without you, we are nothing. I guess you know the Ubuntu spirit, and I'm so privileged that you all are here because without you, we are just nothing. You want to stay tuned for today's conversation, and I'm having a co host today. You will not want to miss her. So you're welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome, everyone. Invite your friends, invite your colleagues, share the links with friends and family. And today I am going to be co-hosting this program with Wambui Rose. Hey, Wambui Rose, you're welcome. It's a privilege to have you like a co-host and a moderator. How are you today, ma'am?
I'm very fine. Thank you for having me once again. It's also a privilege to have this space, and yeah, and also grateful for the people who take their time to actually sit here with us and have this conversation. Because, as I always say, and as I've always read, we need to talk. As long as we have words to talk, we need to talk because that is one of the ways in which we can heal by talking. And today our topic is, as you have seen, getting our own knees off our own necks. And I was thinking about this topic. I was actually sitting in the train and just thinking of what could we talk about today. And it just came into my mind, getting our own knees off our own necks. The reason is because I always feel that any discourse that disregards this aspect of ourselves and what part we have to play in the whole role of this oppression, then for me it's not complete. I once read a story. I think most of you know that story from Bouquet, and he talks about this elephant which had been tied for many years against a
Mm,
small tree. You know that, right?
yes.
And the elephant grew and grew, and but it never moved. Although this elephant is so mighty, an elephant can move trees, it can move houses, but it never moved simply because it
Mhm,
learned when it was very small that it cannot move, and so it just stayed where it was. And
mhm,
this story just moved me so much because I had to ask myself very many questions. Where am I stuck? Just because of the
mhm,
belief that I have to stay stuck.
mhm,
And we know that racism can keep us stuck in very many areas of our lives. Actually, in all areas of our lives, it can keep us stuck. But
mm,
where do we stay stuck? Even if maybe now we could actually move, maybe now it's already, maybe the windows are already open that we could fly out,
mm,
but
mhm.
where do we stay stuck and where do we still stay seated? So this is why I think this conversation is very important. One, that we condemn racism, of course, and then two, that we also look at ourselves and our own strengths and what we can do about it. And of
Mhm.
course, we are here talking about that also in memory of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, which many people don't talk about also, but Breonna Taylor was also a victim of this oppression. And yeah, so in memory of all that and all that is happening, we still want to talk and talk more because we have to. So this will be our topic for today. Do you have anything to add to that?
Oh no, it was so exciting to hear when I said, "Hey, Rose, what are we going to talk today? What are we talking about today?" And of course, we have the racism platform, but and I didn't invite anybody, so the intention is that we have to have a dialogue and then just converse and see where we can also heal our own souls and let the people also just interact with us. And then you said But what if we had to talk about getting our own knees and our own necks? And I thought for a second, I said, but wait a minute, that's a very good way and perception of turning the thing around to really get deeper and see, no? So it's like we're removing the blame game from blaming another person, and now we are coming back to be critical about our own selves. And so that's why I found the idea very interesting. And hey, I think that it's a good way to also become self critics. And in that way, why not heal and really heal, really in its real sense? And maybe from that point, get the courage to really move further. Because I think that most of the time, the example you gave with this elephant, it is really keeping us and it's in the mind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Remember the story we were just having before we started, that usually some things we do is just because somehow we're used to doing that, and then we think that it is a miracle, right? So and I said, I mean, you don't need to pray when you put your seed, the right seed, into the right soil. If you take the seed of corn that is well dried, well arranged, and then you put it into the right soil, you pour water on it, it's going to produce, right? So
Yeah.
if it doesn't, then it happened like any other tornado can happen and any other thing can happen, natural catastrophe. But it's not because God did not answer prayer. It's not because you did not pray on that call, right? And we also talked about the fact that if you take your car to the machine, to the tankenstelle, how do they call it, to the where you have to buy your fuel and put into.
Mm-hmm.
If you go there and then you, instead of taking your fuel, put into your car, you decide to buy the most expensive orange juice, and that orange juice is so expensive, and then you put it into your car, the tanking, and then you fast for 5 days without food, and then you pray for 5 days without food, that car will not move. So that prayer is
Still
at
won't move.
miss.
Yeah.
That prayer is waste of energy, waste of strength, waste of resources. So these are some of the needs that I think we can be talking about today. How we ourselves have placed knees on our own necks, unconsciously or again consciously. And I'm very glad to have the conversation with you. And let's see how it goes. Let's, ladies and gentlemen, share your own comments, share your point of view. We are having a dialogue, and let's see. Tell us, what do you think? What are the needs that we have on our own necks, and how can we change or remove those needs that we have put by our own selves. Today, like I said, I'm with Wambui Rose, and Wambui Rose is co-host, and she is going to also be managing this program. So I'm very excited that we are having someone also in the group and in the team that is going to be helping for this work. Thank you, Rose, for accepting the challenge. God bless you.
God bless you too. We are glad also because we get to learn also a lot from you in that area, especially of spirituality, and even as we stick to that, the kind of needs that we have on our own necks, I think. Just as diverse as racism is, right? Racism is in all areas of our lives. I think there is simply no area it doesn't affect. It affects my coming and going. Really, it even
Mm,
affects me, us, even when we are not in Germany, even when we are in other places, even when we're in
yeah,
Africa. It's still affecting us. and
true.
um and I think just as much as there is racism all over, there is also all these needs that we have. Do you have like a couple of examples of these needs that we have on our own necks, which basically it's just us who can take them away, that nobody else will come, not even God, as you said, or fasting and prayer will come, that it's just us who have to take off these needs off our necks? Do you have a couple of examples on that?
Ooh, I think that the first, I mean, for those who know me by now, know that in as much as I believe in God, I'm a spiritual person, I'm a child of God, a Christian, but I also know that religion has become for some people one of those needs. Many people have heard me tell the story that when I was studying law in Cameroon, someone told me, and I was a Christian, a child of God, who told me a Christian can't do law. And I was like, why? He said, because all lawyers are liars. And when they die, they are buried upside down. I mean, it dawned in my ear like now, like I was hearing that yesterday. And as young as I was, I kept asking her, now, what is a Christian going to do as job? And then he went further to say the Christians can become a teacher, and a housewife, and a pastor, and evangelist, and he named all this. And then I looked at him and I was like, wait a minute, but what if I'm not called to be the typical kind of evangelist that you know? Does it mean that I'm not a child of God? Or wait a minute, what if I go to do law? Does it therefore qualify me as being a sinner? And another one was typically the one also for politicians. When you, as a Christian, you go into politics, especially here in Europe, and then people are like, a Christian is not supposed to be a
A
politician.
politician. Mhm.
And and I remember vividly 2014, someone even called me and asked, how can the wife of a pastor be a politician? You know? So, and I was like, goodness, wait a minute. Now, I think these are some of the needs we have consciously or unconsciously placed on ourselves. I can understand the point of view whereby these people are coming, where they think nay for precaution's sake and all that. But I think it's better that we have balanced conversations instead of dwelling more on the negative, the limitations, that we put expose the people, prepare the people, afford time so that whatever thing that is coming, the people are prepared. When you tell a young person Christians are not supposed to be politicians and not supposed to be lawyers and they should be teachers, question, what if not all of are we all going to be teachers? Are we all going to be lecturers? Are we all going to be pastors, as they pay the word pastors? Of course, we all are Christians. We all are evangelists. We all are men of God. We all are women of God. Why? Because we bear the mark of God upon us. Simple. Right? So it's not because of a title that you have that makes you really, really specially different and more worth, particularly than another person. It's about the relationship and the deep relationship that we create, right? So I think religion is one of those things, and if people can really set themselves free by really getting close relationship with God, meditating the word of God, living a Christ-like life, things will be different. I wrote in one of my one morning I got up and suddenly I started a word came in me. I just got this word, and the word was like, what if what if we're all thinking only good about the other person and negative about ourselves? Are we going to have send are we going to be able to send people to hell? And if yes, who is going to go into hell?
Mhm.
Right. I don't know if you got that. So now, most of the time, when we have even the notion, I don't mean that there's no hell. There should be, sure, maybe there should be, right? Now, if it is the notion of hell, if I look at you, Wambui Rose, with the eye of God, with the eye of mercy, with the eye of kindness, with the eye of peace, with the eye of joy, with God's own eye of forgiveness and forgetting. Now, will I be able to put you in hell? Then it means that something is wrong somewhere. Now, if I turn around and I'm looking but at myself as being unforgiving, judgmental, and whatever, and then I say, yes, I will now go to that hell. Do you think we are going to create space for hell? We are hardly going to create space for hell. Why?
Yeah.
Because the eyes that I look you with will guide me. That's why it says As a man thinketh, so is he. As a woman thinketh, so she is. When I look at you, I see a child of God. And even if you are not where you were supposed to be, I offer you the space, the chance, the possibility to come to that place that I believe that is supposed to be your greatness without being judgmental and with the forgiveness heart, knowing that you will get there because it is God's plan and His design that you succeed, you meet Him on the last day. So I think religion, in that sense of hierarchy, putting things, laws, and things that has made people not really think, reflect, has destroyed a lot. And that's why it also tells us that be woe to the scribes and the Pharisees, because at the end of the day, the scribes and the Pharisees are religious leaders. So we don't want to continue that kind of relationship that the scribe and the Pharisees had, but we want to look like Christ and be like God. And so I think religion is one aspect, but I also think the miseducation and our doctor is always present. Dr. Jerry, you remind me she had a very good program today, and unfortunately I couldn't make it. And
I
Dr.
was
Jerry
there.
said miseducation, and the miseducation, and that takes us back to history. Do you know many people think that Africa is the story of history, and the history of Africa begins with colonialism. Can you imagine that? I mean,
Yes.
even us, when we are talking, I hear people saying Africa is just 60 years old. And I'm asking, 60 years old in the eyes of colonial masters, or in the eyes of who? 60 years old? When we read that civilization began in Africa and Egypt, how can we say 60 years old?
And
Right?
due to that, when we can say Africa is 60 years old, is when we can comfortably say that Lake Niger was discovered by Mr. Clark,
You
because
got
of
it.
this notion that Africa is 60 years old. And
Yeah.
I think just to also point out in what you're saying about religion, I grew up in church, and I think that is one of the deepest needs for a human being, at least for me, was this connection with a power greater than myself, and all those things that make up a community. For me, there would be no community without the idea of God.
Yes.
But I think the problem is also that this religion thing, it is never to be questioned. There is the aspect of religion which sometimes can become difficult, because religion can be good, but if it can never ever be questioned, and the people who say this is what religion is, it can never be questioned, because that's not any good hypothesis must stand being questioned. And if it cannot stand being questioned, then what kind of a hypothesis is that? And if we are talking about the creator of all things, then we must be ready to accept that even if there is a hypothesis about this creator of all things, then it must stand criticism, and it must stand somehow also change, because humanity changes. So if religion cannot go with the human beings the way they are moving, and if this Bible was written so many years ago, but still those rules have to be enforced on people, then we are standing on our own ways, because some of these things are not true. And if we say, like, for example, Christians are not supposed to be politicians, so how about the kings and queens who are in the Bible? Are kings not politicians? Can you have?
Now there is a difference. The thing is, there
Mm,
is a difference. When we talk of religion, it's really the system and the structures, the organizations that has been
mm,
placed. God is not a religion. God, He never created any forms of religion, actually. He's God. And so, because people will say, if God, when we talk about God, people see most of the time religion. Why? Because religion was created for this very purpose, that we can be able to preserve our egoism, preserve the things that we think it is good for us, and then manipulate other things, especially. But when we talk of God, it is not about the religion. And now we are talking about the Christian religion, because there are other religions. There's a Buddhism, there's a Muslim religion, and all that. And I don't always want to stay on one specific religion. It is true that most of us, as from the Christian part of it, we want to look at it directly. But I want to always leave it at the level of it is religion, all of that, the Christian, the religion, from the Catholicism, Christianism, Muslimism, Buddhism, and all that. But the fact is, when you start looking God as God, you will realize that all that which was written, even if they were, let's put assume that they were stories, and we want to get into those stories to know, you can use them mightily and become great, actually. Now, I say most of the time, the only things I do not question are laws. For example, if you go up the mountain, the law of physics, that's the law of physics. If you go up the mountain, it says that whatever things go up comes down. That's a law of physics. So if you throw something up, you come, it will fall. So go up on the mountain. If you care, you fast for 100 days, and you go up the mountain, you pour yourself down. If it's really a long, high mountain, you're going to die, right? Because that's physics. And say when it goes up there, it will come down, right? Now, there are principles that I really do not question, because there are principles and they like certain things. But every other thing, like norms, you can ask norms, you can question norms. When I was growing up, for example, they said women were not allowed in my village culture, whatever. They said women were not allowed to eat gizzard. I don't know if you know gizzard. Gizzards are those small parts of a chicken,
Even
and
us, we are not allowed to take that.
so so I kept asking my dad the question, why are we not supposed to and allowed? And especially it was for women. So you
Mhm,
see where hierarchy comes in. So they said
mhm,
women were not allowed to eat the gizzard. Now,
mhm,
when I arrived in Germany, the first thing I did, because I was not convinced. I mean, we are no longer in a time where we are no longer in a time where you just say do. Children, they ask questions not because they want to criticize, but because they want to understand. And now, if
mhm,
you can make someone understand something, there's a problem. Now, when I'm saying that, when we talk about principles, it means that when you sow a seed, it will produce, right? Because the natural law has made it that way. When you give, you receive, not because it is written somewhere, because the natural law backs that up, right? Now, and so when I came to Germany, what did I do? I entered the supermarket. Behold, I saw a bunch of gizzard being sold for not for €5. I mean, then I was wondering if it's the gizzard they asked women not to eat in the part where I came from those days. So
mhm,
I looked at the gizzard, and I'm thinking within me, and you know what? I said to myself, Vera, now today I'm going to buy this gizzard, not only one of these packets, I'm going to buy like 2 kilograms of this gizzard. I'm going to go home. I'm going to prepare it. I'm not even going to inform anybody about it. I want to see what is in the gizzard. So I'm going to sit here, eat all of this gizzard, and then see if I'm going to die. And
mhm,
then if I don't die, then I'm going to call my parents and say, that thing you said is not true. Right?
mhm,
So when I
mhm,
bought it, but within me, I was saying, God, I don't know what is going to happen. If it's a culture, let me see what is going to happen. And then, because somehow it's a myth and it's been translated and people believe it, right?
yeah.
So, but men did that. I want to say they did that so as to question certain, so as to preserve certain things. Don't ask me what thing. So when I prepared that, and hey, I sat there and I was praying within me, oh God, have mercy. Let me eat. And I ate one. I'm not dying. I ate the second one. I'm not dying. Then I realized, wait a minute, something was mystical about this thing. And so all my life, I only when I grew, they said women do not eat gizzard. And then just to realize that was a fake. It was just a lie. What was
Mhm,
backing that up? Nothing. So these are some of the knees we put on our own necks. And why? Because we want to hold on certain positions, certain
mhm,
things that maybe could be of interest to us, preserve some certain things. that really have no essence when you really go deep to look at it as spiritual beings. Don't
Mhm.
forget, no matter what we say, we are spiritual beings, right? So I think some of these needs we really have to critically look at them and hope that it really that we set ourselves free from some of those norms that are really
Mhm.
just destructive, right?
Yeah.
Let's take the second norm again. I mean, when let's look at the case whereby they say most of the time the role of the man is to provide and the woman stays at home, take care of the children and all that. Is that not beautiful? If it should be, it is not a bad thing, right? But what if you have a woman that is dynamic, that is able to support you and make better your life and that of the children? Will it not be unwise to leave all that potentials at home while you are doing all the sweating yourself? I mean, you come to
That is.
Europe, to Germany, and then you're doing all the sweating yourself, and you get even depressed, you get frustrated because you can't meet the needs of the woman, the family in laws, and everybody. And the possibility for her to do something with her own hands is there. And you say, no, I'm the man. I mean, these are some of the needs we have unconsciously or consciously put upon our neck, and it's really dealing with us seriously.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. That is. It just appears to be so difficult to get ourselves out of some of these things. I was listening to Patrice Lumumba sometimes back, and he used to say that uh, especially when you look at African politicians or Kenyan politicians. Let me reduce that to Kenyan politicians. And he was saying that when once they start going for the seat of a mayor or really a small seat of a chief, that from then on they will demand on being called Your Highness, and they will demand to have someone following them with several cars. So he was talking about this need for power, like really just wanting these power and recognition for things. And also that sometimes I feel like it stands in our way when we just want to stand for power. Some people refuse to be called by certain names. Some people refuse to listen to instruction from other people. Like I learn lessons from small children. I always say small kids in Germany taught me the language.
Yeah.
And also this power, like you say, these hierarchies, we have a lot of hierarchies which in return also come and stand in our ways, right? um, Someone is saying we can also question the law of physics. That is why we are being able to build aeroplane. Also very interesting. Hypothesis must stand testing, and if they can stand those testing, then we know they are true. Yes, of course, the law of physics can be questioned, and of course we have aeroplanes, but that still doesn't mean that the law of physics, when things go up, they come down. That doesn't mean that it's not true. It's still true, which means you have to do other things for this to conquer this law. Jerry Kramer is also saying we
Exactly.
had a yeah.
That's so important, man, because usually, and that's where our challenge is. The thing is, when you just hear this one principle, you forget that there is another principle
Mhm,
that you have to bring them together. So we are spirit beings. So you can't be just walking like on one leg like this all the time, on one principle and hold on it. All principles also interwoven, right? Just like laws are interwoven. You see that also with the natural law and the laws made by men in court. That's why there's always a defense, and that's why there's always a process that's going on. So you bring your own, I bring my own, and all those are in the same book of the law, backing up. So one law backs another, and so therefore, yes, even though it is questionable, it could be questionable. We should also understand that laws are being backed up by certain things, and that takes us back again to even the norms of the society. So you don't just say yes, okay, without asking, wait a minute, why did this happen this way? There was a story of a man, Vincent. He Many people follow him too. He developed the Mind Valley.
mhm,
And this man, he wrote his book, the Code of the Extraordinary Mind, an amazing book. Buy it to read, a good book.
Mhm.
And in the Code of the Extraordinary Mind, he tells us exactly his own experience when he was 9 years old. I think he's from the Buddhist side of religion, and they were not allowed to eat beef and meat and these things because one reason or the other. So at the age of 9, McDonald came to them, and you know what McDonald sells? Beef. So just opposite their home was a big, beautiful McDonald business center. So this young man will be going through and for when he's coming back from school and all that, and just be looking at this beef looking at him. And but his culture says they are not allowed to eat beef. So he went back home one day and asked the mom, but tell me, why don't we eat beef? And the mom said, why don't you go find out yourself? This man was 9 years old and we didn't have a lot of internet like now. So he had to buy encyclopedias, all these books to research. Now he found out amazing stuffs. He realized that the why they were not eating beef was simply because in those days the animals were living with them in their homes. And so it was like being part of them. So for them, killing a part of their member to eat was practically like a taboo. And therefore, they decided in the community that no, we can't eat this because they are living with us. Now, years and years have passed by. People have just adopted that without asking the history behind it. No wonder Dr. Jerry always said, go back to the history. No
Mhm.
one asks the history behind it. We now just adopt it and we transfer it from generation to generation. What amazes me or even disturbs me in this transfer of misinformation is the fact that when we transfer this misinformation, we so believe that it is the Alpha and Omega and the finishing and the end. And so that when someone dares to even say, but why is it? You do not see the aspect of the why as being someone is being curious to know something. We are
Mhm.
rather judging that person as being rebellious and judging that person as being non-conformed. But we can't all be conformed because we are not all the same. We can't all conform because your name is Wambui Rose, mine is Vera Sompon, and we don't have the same purpose here on earth, and we have different assignments. So I can't conform to you, and you should not conform to me. And so we have the right to ask questions. And who is this king that will not allow his subject, his citizens, to say, Sir, king, tell me more. Why did you do this? Why did you create this? So that we can understand. Anytime that you can't ask that kind of a question to someone freely, then something is wrong even with that relationship.
Mhm.
Then
Yeah,
something is wrong. And so this
that is.
young man at the age of 9 years old discovered that it was not because of anything spectacular. It was simply because the animals were living with them in the homes, like we have dogs today, and Germans, no German would eat a dog, right? So and so they just put it like a law. Oops, no, we can't eat that. And they transferred that from generation to generation and made it to be like spiritual.
It's so
And so
true.
he, at 9 years old, he broke that law, and he's still
Mhm.
alive. Nothing happened to him.
Nothing happened to him. That is so
Right?
impressive because the Bible also talks about people getting lost because of lack of knowledge, and also it also talks about that we've been given a power of a sound mind, and I really like thinking about this power of a sound mind to question, because a sound mind questions things, a sound mind notices things,
Yeah.
and a sound mind is a mind that is growing. If it's just staying there where it was, then it's no longer sound, because things are
Mm,
either growing or dying. There is no
mm,
stagnation in growth. And so we've talked about the several myths, which could be miseducation, lack of our own history, religion, culture, hierarchies. We refuse to question things. So these are the things that basically are always standing in our own ways. And I saw
mm,
Jerry Kramer saying that we had our own religions, but we got away from them, of course, because most of them were demonized, and they were like not good enough religions. Although when we look at history, we can see that many things were actually also borrowed from the African religions. But that's another class which I think Jerry Kramer can do much better. So my question in all this is always that we do see all these things, and we are all really intelligent people who see all these things happening. So why is it so hard? Like Bob Marley sang in his song, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery." Why can we not emancipate ourselves from this mental slavery? Why is it so difficult? Although we know these things, why do we always keep on falling in the same traps? Because we saw James Baldwin talking about these things. We saw all these people talking about these things for years and years, 50 years, 100 years. We are still talking about the same things. Why does it take us so long to get these needs off ourselves? Because apparently we can see them, but apparently they still hinder us in our own lives.
You will, the question will be, you will ask the same question: why is it that someone drinks and knows that drinking is not good and drinks, or
Mm-hmm.
someone eats and know that eating too much is not good and still eat, but they know that, right? I
Mm-hmm.
think we are trapped at times. We are trapped
We are
in
trapped.
our comfort zones. We are
Mm,
trapped in. And if you followed me on Sunday, you realize I mentioned a lot about the mind, how
mhm,
the mind loves comfort and the mind wants to protect us. Now, when we give a certain information over and over to the mind, I like taking some good food, some sweets, I like, you know, now, and then you want to lose the weight. Take the case of you want to lose the weight. When you starve yourself, or you say you go some few hours without eating, or you don't eat that particular thing, what happens is that mind says, oh, danger is on the road. See, it makes you so much so that you want to go back to eat it. It forces you somehow. That's why psychologists said that if you break through 90 days, usually they say 90 days, then you will break through. Then if you want to go back, then it is you. But between that 1 day to 90 day is an amazing hard tough work that is being done. And so the mind has its own way of protecting us. The mind doesn't know if it's bad or it is good. It's love the comfort that we have given it all this while. And that's why it stays there. Now, you ask yourself the question, you know that unforgiveness makes you not healthy. It gives you hypertension because when you see that person, your heart start beating. Question: why do you keep that person in your heart? Because we are unconscious of the fact that we don't even think. And Einstein said it very well: human beings don't think, and human beings don't ask questions. And if we ask questions, we ask maybe the wrong questions. Just like when God said, when you pray amiss. We ask the wrong question, if at all there's any wrong question, but at times we do not even ask the question, because the 5V questions, we don't ask them. And if we start asking especially the why question, we'll start realizing no one will tell us. We will start shifting, making the shift, because it's not comfortable. Now, it's not comfortable to be in an environment where you see there's limitation and you pretend like, okay, it's okay, we can manage it. No, it's not comfortable. It's not good and it's not comfortable. So I think that while we are unable to move and break through, is the fact that we love to stay where we are.
mhm,
And I think that we enjoy that comfort space to blame another person.
mhm.
I think that's only what I why I can how I can explain this. We just love that we will have someone to be the scapegoat,
Being the victim.
being the victim. If someone is not a victim, then you realize that we will not stay there. We
Mm,
enjoy saying that it internalized racism. We know this like how many years? Since 400 years, right? We know that we have to support black businesses. Why
mhm,
don't we buy from the black businesses?
mhm.
Because somehow we love to also see the blame game go on. And
Yeah.
that's how the mind works. It takes a lot of consciousness, mindfulness, and of course, a lot of spirituality. Like Jerry said, going back to our own, where we go, we have a direct source with God, not
Mm-hmm.
intermediates and people all over around. Really sitting in your home and having a relationship with God. I remember the days when I just came to Germany, I just encountered God, and I would take my chair and I sit there. I say, God, you're welcome. Sit and let's talk. And that's how I was talking. So I wasn't talking like a special way of praying. And I'll be talking, God, now how do I go about with this? How do I do with this? And I'll be asking my question, what do you think? Why did you do like this? And no one knows that I'm asking all those questions, but I'm not asking in the form of a blame, but I'm asking like a dialogue to know him.
Mm-hmm.
And then we do not meditate. We are quick to talk and less meditating. It is in the
Mm-hmm.
process of meditating, that stillness, quietness, that we get usually those deep things.
Mm-hmm.
But if you notice, well, we love talking, right? We
That's true.
love talking. So
Yeah.
we should take quality time to stay quiet, to just be quiet, and you will
Mm.
start getting messages come within you. You'll start getting a clear mind because you will be listening deep, and you will ask questions like this, like the message I told you I got. I was just taking my shower and suddenly it came upon me. What if I had to blame only myself? Will I be able to put someone in hell? If that person should go to hell, will be me,
Mm-hmm.
right? And therefore, if I'm to put myself in hell, will I put myself there? I will not. Who wants to go to hell? No
Yeah.
one wants to go to hell. So you realize now that it's because we do not really ask questions. We don't
Yeah.
dare to ask. But I don't mean that you should
That
get up
one.
and just be asking questions anyhow. No, ask with a purpose. You want to know something. You want to. I was 14 years old when I asked my dad, and I told my dad that children are to be heard and not to be seen, because I wanted to have him know that I'm around. But no other of my siblings did that. So you see, people are different. No wonder Angelo said that the greatest virtue is courage. I'm encouraging everyone listening to us or listening to my voice to be courageous enough to ask questions that will bring critical change within oneself.
Right.
Let the process start within. Don't want it to start with others. I don't want it to start with others. If it starts with me effectively, I will transmit it to you, or you will just start copying what I'm doing, right? Because you're seeing something good. Is that true? So let's not want this change to be by all means starting from others. Again, that's a blame game. Let the change start from us. Let there be the renewal of the mind with us. Let us have the sound mind, us. Let
Mm.
me have that sound mind. Let me ask that critical question within me. Vera, what did it profit you when you hate someone?
Mm.
Vera, what does it profit you when you look down at someone? Vera, what does it profit you? Are you happy when someone is angry? Ask those questions yourself. Don't say that on Facebook. Don't say that on the public. Don't ask it to yourself. And when you are in your quiet place and hear the answers come, you will be amazed at the answer. Ask yourself the question, but Vera, what has happened? Why are you not the queen that you're supposed to be? Why are you not where you're supposed to be? And then when you hear those real true answers come to you, just say, God, thank you for the information, and start working towards it rather than pointing because of my husband, because of the government, because of Rose, because of Elizabeth. No. If there should be change, it should begin with us. And someone say, we all want a change, but we deny to start the change. That's the problem.
That's the problem. I think the most scary thing about leaving the victimhood is because we all know that if we stop being the victim, we have to start doing something because change is very scary, and sometimes people are just used to suffering. We are just more familiar to suffering. I had someone, or I don't know if I was telling someone, if I was born with a headache and anything I've ever known is just a headache, I would just think it's normal, and I will go on
Yeah.
with my life just suffering, thinking that that's how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
until one day somebody comes and shows me how life is without a headache. And that's the
Yes.
first time I will actually start aspiring to live a life without a headache. But
Mm,
I'm always very convinced that we are totally convinced that our situation can only be that way. And I think it's also Trevor Noah who wrote in his book Born a Crime. I love that book, really, really a very good book. And he says this ghetto mentality, that when we are in this ghetto mentality, we don't dare get out because everything we know is the ghetto, and
yeah.
all people we know are in the ghetto. That
Mm,
ghetto is familiar to us. So how dare we go to the uplands? How dare we think even that we can
yeah.
afford to get out of the ghetto, because
Yeah.
we think that's who we are. So I think even as we talk about this thing, I always think in the direction of we need to remind ourselves of our own worthiness.
Oh,
Like, are
yes.
we worthy? Because I
Oh,
think that is something that someone has taken away from us, really on purpose, that our worthiness has been questioned for so long, such that we started believing in very many different ways on our worthiness of going to certain places, doing certain things. There's another time I went with a friend of mine to Azauna in Oiskish, a very posh place, and we were the only black people. And
mm,
sometimes when you would get out, there was this fear of, am I supposed to be here? Because
mm,
we had not yet given ourselves the permission to be in that place, and so we start making ourselves smaller until we remember that we are paying the same amount of money, to be there. Sometimes we have to remind ourselves of our own worthiness of being somewhere.
yeah. Yeah.
So it's
I
really, we
think I
have a
think that I think we really should understand we're not supposed to wait for people to tell us that we're worthy. It's
lot.
not the responsibility of those people. It is your responsibility. At the moment, I mean, I have the responsibility to tell my daughter, my children, the people around me, especially when they are still young, you're worthy.
Hmm.
Believe in yourself. You're able to do exceedingly more than you can even imagine. I wish our people understood the abilities that we have. I wish we just knew. And so I would tell her, you're worthy. And she said, I know. I say, yes, I know that you know, right? But when
Hmm.
you turn the age of 18, it's in as much as I still may tell you time and again, but honestly, you should be able to understand without taking permission from nobody to say, I'm worthy, because you are in the image of a worthy God. We are
Hmm.
created in such a powerful image. I'm sure we do not even know that we are small gods. That's why we play the small games. That's why we play the blame games. That's why we play like we play. If we knew, and I knew this very long, and that's why I kept asking my mom, why then are some people like this in your church in this way? And that's why I resisted the church for so long. And then until I realized it's not about the church, it's about my relationship with my God. Whatever I am practicing it is not a problem, but my intimate relationship with Him is a different one altogether, right? And so I don't take permission to say you're worthy, and I don't give permission to anybody to put me down, because then you have made yourself again small. And it is the pride of human beings to see that others are smaller than them. And
Hmm.
this again is because of their insecurities. Because
Yeah.
honestly, when you know that you're a God, why are you insecure? You're not
Hmm.
insecure. Gods are not insecure. And the Bible makes me understand that I am a little God. I think it's because we don't even know that. So we are lack of information about the fact that we are God, little God, and then somehow we even know it and we're unable to apply it because of fear. So that's why courage comes in. And if we go back to remember the story again, if we're staying on the Bible, where God was telling Joshua, I will be with you. Only fear thou not. Be thou brave and courageous. So I think this is
Hmm.
a message for our people home. Be thou brave and courageous to
Hmm.
know that this earth is abundantly, sufficiently big for all of us, and goodness can never finish. Love can never finish. Mercy can never finish. Abundance doesn't finish. And therefore, you owe yourself some abundance, some love, some kindness, some mercy, some forgiveness without looking back. Live like this is the end today, and tomorrow is an illusion. Yesterday was imagination. I mean, just like yesterday was an illusion and tomorrow imaginations. And then live today like today and see how you will make the best of it and enjoy it. So let's not limit ourselves with petty things, with norms that because we have not questioned. I just
Mhm.
finished watching a film with my husband, and the whole time I was like, such images, we should stop portraying that. Because when you keep portraying such images, then people find us who are trying to say we want to help have a balanced society, that we want to be helpers to our men and our boys so that they become the best version of themselves. And then others will be saying, no, 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 then you are taking the responsibilities from them away. No, that's not the message. The message is that you don't want to kill your fellow God brother or sister. So if we
Mhm.
also ourselves like fellow gods, with that eyeball to eyeball, respect one another, love ourselves with that real, genuine love of mercy, kindness, hey, I'm not sure that you want to go to hell. And
Mhm.
therefore, if you don't want to go in there, you will not allow any limitations break your purpose in life.
And hell can be a state of mind, right? You can be in
Of
hell even right here, right now already,
course, of
which
course.
is tragic. So our
What do you
time is
think? The
really.
limitations are also part of the hell. People
Mhm.
limit themselves that they don't even expand. They
Yeah.
don't fulfill purpose. They don't achieve their reasons for which they were born. And because they do not ask the question, why am I here on earth? Why am I here in Germany?
Mhm.
What for am I created? We're not created to do the same thing. No. And even if we're going to be the same environment, but perhaps not the same way to swim, like the fish, we have different kinds of fishes. Like the bird, we have different kinds of birds. Like the trees, we have different kinds of trees. We may all be trees, but not the same trees. So,
Mhm.
so
Mhm.
let's start questioning some things. Start within us, and I'm sure that we're going to really love it.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. Now we are approaching the end of our session today, and we have talked about a lot about what hinders us. And I always like knowing what can we do now. You know, because most of the solutions that we have are always somewhere in the future, somehow abstract. But what is the one thing that we can start doing right now? Um, so that to change this thing, I saw that comment from Liz, who was saying that we are all kind of trying to validate ourselves. And Liz is saying, I think the world is so broken, most people don't validate others. Therefore, it's our own major responsibility to convince ourselves of our worthiness and spread it to others. Yes, I actually did this experiment. I was one of those people who had a very low self esteem a few years ago. And I read somewhere that I can only keep something if I give it. And so I started consciously on the street whenever I saw someone looking good, because I was totally convinced of my own ugliness, basically. And so I was consciously telling people they look good, you know. And I started with others, and then I started that with myself, really like a crazy person. In the morning I will tell myself, Rose, you're beautiful this morning. And it didn't take much time. Today I'm totally convinced that I'm a very beautiful person, but it's all in my mind. And when I see pictures, I can actually see the moment that it changed from my own belief I was ugly to my own belief that I was
Oh,
not
praise
ugly,
God.
you know. And it's so powerful. And I like such simple tips of just go to yourself in the mirror and tell yourself. I was even in another conversation where another guy went on and on criticizing her face, and then, and I could stop her and told her, I no longer take part in such conversations. If you want to body shame yourself, I'm not taking part in this one. And I stopped watching certain movies. I stopped reading some certain books because I'm a
Praise
bookworm. I read so much. So I had to start choosing, what am I reading? So those
Great,
are the
great.
things that have helped me in my own journey to really, because once I'm convinced of my own worthiness, then I can go get that degree, then I
Mm.
can go get that job, I can do anything once I know I'm good enough, and I think for me that's where it always starts. I am good enough to do all these things. So for me it's always okay, where can we start today, right now, without this future abstract that we don't know, like today, what else can we do
I
so that we
think
can
that
get
there is
ourselves out of this mark,
there are
basically.
simple tools that we can always use. You already mentioned one. If someone is feeling this unworthiness, the best tool, one of them, is really to declare that to themselves, even by looking in the mirror and doing this morning declaration. I'm beautifully made, I'm wonderfully made, I'm an image of God, and all this. But I think active there are six active questions I've come to learn, and this
Mm-hmm,
tool is so important. You can write them down and you can use them. The
mm-hmm,
active six daily active questions is
mm-hmm,
about, do did I do my best?
mm-hmm,
Each question starts with, did I do my best? Now let's take the case of, we want to change our environment. Did I do my best to, you continue, up to six. So make them like over six. And always start with, did I do my best?
mm-hmm,
Did I do my best? The did I do my best question is a very powerful tool we can really use to help ourselves daily. Then you have a journal of it. So you're not just asking yourself, but you have a journal. You have the areas where you want to do your best in those areas. And then
mm-hmm,
you raise them from 1 to 10. So 10 is the highest, I did my best, and then 0 is the lowest, I didn't do my best. So let's say, for
mm-hmm,
example, I want to go for sport. I want to really have a healthy lifestyle. And so I said, okay, now I want to change my health and I want to do something every day. So I'm going
mm-hmm,
to write it on that area. Did I do my best to set good goals, clear goals for my health? Did I
mm-hmm,
do my best to achieve the set goals? Did I do my best to do the activities I planned to do? Now,
mm-hmm,
the point in this assignment is really for you to go deep to doing your best. If you
mm-hmm,
did your best and it still did not work, still tap yourself on the shoulder. That was just my best I could do. Right. And so when we have these six questions daily, active questions, did I do my best? It helps a lot. Did I do my best to communicate with my children today? Did I do my best to communicate, to help a brother today? Did I do my best to encourage someone today? Did I do my best to be active for those who are in organizations? Did I do my best to be active? Because usually we want other people to make us feel and give us responsibilities, but the active questions make you take responsibility.
That is so true. Thank you. Thank you so much for this talk. We only have 3 more minutes. And I would just like to summarize real quick what we talked about today. We were talking
Mhm.
today about getting our own needs from our own necks. And in the beginning, we defined what this needs could be like. And we talked about miseducation. We talked about religion. We talked about culture, and culture. Who makes culture? People make culture. We are culture. And we also talked about hierarchies and who wants to hold on to hierarchies and how are they helpful to us. We also talked about questioning things and trusting ourselves to go ahead and question what is happening, and if it doesn't make me feel good, why doesn't it? And is there anything I can do about it?
Mhm.
And then we also talked about why we are still so fixed in these ideas. Why are we still suffering with our own needs, basically on our own necks, when we could get them away? And we um we talked about a lot of things about our, of course, internalized racism, of our own idea of our own worth. We even talked about us being small gods and not knowing that we are actually small gods. And um, and we also talked about the solutions, and the solutions we had active solutions. Tell yourself you are that person, tell yourself, go and be that person you want to be, and tell yourself that you are that person. And also knowing our strengths. I think that's something you always say, Vera, that if you're a fish, don't go try climbing trees. and don't judge yourself by the capability of you not climbing trees. If you are a fish, try the swimming. And also these active questions. Did I do my best today? So those were the things that we talked about today. Thank you so much. This was so informative. Do you have any other closing words for us today?
Yes, I think thank you very much, Wambui Rose. I think that per I can leave the space now for you. And I think you're doing an amazing job. Keep the job going. Keep it up. I think I want to appreciate everyone who is always listening to us, everyone who are very, very active. We have very active people here. Thank you. We see you all. We appreciate you. But most especially as a take home message, I want us to really spend quality time in asking these deep questions to ourselves. Meditate more than speaking more. Let's start
Mhm.
the process of meditating. I'm saying this because the people I'm seeing here, most of them also have spiritual backgrounds and religious backgrounds. So let's take the time to listen more to God than always talking too much. If at all we really want to use that method, because I use that method and I think that when we listen more, we will be able to transform also well and quick. And I'm sure that we're going to break the knees that we have put ourselves through limitations. And these limitations are man made limitations. And Steve
Mhm.
Jobs said how he wished we knew that those people who put those rules, norms, were not smarter than we are. So when
Mhm.
you're going home today, you know you're smarter than them all. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much. Also, from me, thank you for having me and for paving this way, because of course we need a way that has been paved, and this is a way that has been paved for us already, so that we can march through, and so that we can create that also for other people. So thank you for having us. Thank you for taking your time. As Vera always says, we take your time very seriously, and we appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. God bless you and see you next week, same time. Bye bye.
Good evening.